and we're going to take your questions. So begin by talking about the numbers here with regard to COVID. You know, the numbers this week, if you've been following along, have, been a little inconsistent, I think would be the right word. Yesterday, the city of St. Louis only reported 17 new cases, 37 the day before, 27 the day before. And then prior to that, it was 44, 46, 45. We've had a couple of good days with a low number of cases. So we're happy about that, but we're not going to read too much into that until we can get a little bit longer runway here to look at this data over a little longer period of time. Particularly because the hospitalization numbers for the region are, they're not so great. 303 people in the hospital in the region 2 days ago, and it had been as high the day before that. It was 309, then 296. So up over 300 for a couple of days. 89 people on ventilators yesterday, 2 days ago, and that's high. That's the highest it's been in quite a while. I'm looking back here to see when the last, well, in more than a month. That's did I say on ventilators? In the ICU is what I meant to say. 89 people in the ICU. That's the highest it's been in a month. 45 people on ventilators. 37 people admitted to the hospital yesterday, but 66 the day before that, and that's the highest it's been for a long time. So something's happening here. I think City of St. Louis cases are looking better, but the hospitalizations are not looking very good. Hospitalization, ICU, and ventilators are not looking very good right now. So we're just going to need to watch this a little longer until we can tell what does this all really mean. You might say, well, how can the number of people in the hospital and in ICU and ventilators be, considerably more than it has been, while the number of cases, at least in the city of St. Louis, is going down? And this is a bit of a speculation, but the hospital numbers are from a wider region. Our hospitals in this region serve people outside of the region also, and I'm sure you've noticed that the case counts that are going up pretty significantly in some of the outlying counties. And so while we don't know the zip codes of the people that are actually in the hospital or where those people actually come from, I mean, of course the hospitals know it, but we're not privy to that information. Maybe it's a speculation that since there are more cases in outstate Missouri, I'll call it, that those people are being sicker and are being hospitalized more than they were a month or 2 months ago. So hospital numbers are up, and of course that's concerning, of course, for those folks that are ill, but also concerning because there's so much, we're such a transient society, and many of those people that live maybe an hour away from here or even further sometimes are traveling here to work or that sort of thing, so and traveling back home. So those are the COVID numbers. What we're seeing also is that the 7-day moving average for new hospital admissions, it had been hovering just under 40. Now it's up to 44. Of course, it's being driven by that one big day of 66 admissions a couple of days ago. And so that was such a spike that's pulling that average up. So 44 average number of people newly admitted to the hospital, daily average number. I think those are the significant numbers here. 303 hospitalized, I told you that. So that is the story on COVID. I think that, some schools are starting or have started this past week. Some are starting this next week. In the city of St. Louis, a large number of the schools in the city of St. Louis are all virtual. Some are a bit, part virtual, part in school. I know that everybody wants kids to be back in school as soon as it's safe for kids to be back in school. I think all of us believe that, better learning occurs in schools. But at this point in time, I certainly support the decision of St. Louis Public Schools, many of the charter schools, to go all virtual or a combination of in classroom and virtual. So we'll have to see how those things affect the COVID numbers. So, Jacob, you have some questions for us?
A few questions, Mayor. So do the lower case counts in the city suggest that the mask restrictions and bar restaurant restrictions over the last couple of weeks have been working or are working?
Maybe. I guess optimistically I would say yes, but I will tell you there's so much involved in these case counts. We know, is it the fact that the mask restriction has been in place for longer? Is it the fact that we're getting better mask compliance? Is it the fact that bars and restaurants are closing at 11? I think it's a combination of all of those things, and hard to, pin it on one thing or another. The other thing I would say is that, these 2 days within the last week of really pretty low case numbers in the city, that's not something to count on, not yet.
So the 11 p.m. bar curfew, Mayor, how much longer does the city anticipate that is going to be, bar and restaurant, how much longer does the city anticipate that is going to be around?
I know that is really a question on a lot of people's mind. And I can't really answer that question. I think it's fairly likely that it'll be around for a while longer, but we're going to reevaluate that at the end of next week. The order that we put out a couple of weeks ago said it would go through the 7th of September. That's Labor Day. It may be extended for a couple of weeks beyond there. We have to see what these numbers look like. I do want to point out that, so the city of St. Louis has an 11 p.m. closing time for bars and restaurants. Illinois has 11, and nightclubs, all clubs. Illinois has 11 p.m. closing, this region of Illinois, for bars and restaurants. St. Louis County has a 10 p.m. closing for bars. And so this is not just the city of St. Louis that has 11 p.m. restriction. In fact, I did a little looking up here. There are a number of states who have statewide, they call it last call times sometimes. So early closing times. Alabama, Texas, California, Colorado was at 10 p.m. They went to 11 p.m. Mississippi, Rhode Island, Columbus, Ohio. This is not, a comprehensive search across all cities and locations, but there are a lot of places who have a 10 or an 11 p.m. closing time for bars. And I imagine that some of that came about because the CDC and Dr. Birx, that was one of the things that they were recommending. In fact, this was a few weeks ago. I think I mentioned it to those of you that watch this regularly. We had a call with Dr. Birx, and at that time we did not have the 11 p.m. closing in place, but it was something that she really encouraged us to do. So, everybody's trying to do the best they can to keep as many businesses open as much as possible, because we know that when businesses are restricted, that has an impact on employees. So it's about the businesses, employees. And so we really are doing our best to try to keep these numbers down, and be able to leave businesses open, be able to get kids back in school. And all of that is a balancing act. And I want to get businesses fully reopened as possible. We all want to get back to normal. I don't know if we're ever going back to the old normal. Maybe we'll have a new normal, but I know we all want to get back to as much of normal as we can. And so having a vaccine, of course, would be a major plus for that. And you listen to the news just like I do, and I'm hearing, well, maybe by the end of the year, if it is by the end of the year, well, who will get it? Will it just be the most vulnerable populations? But all of that is so fluid at this point in time. I mean, the end of the year is not that far off, but it's 4 months, right? September, October, November, December. 4 months, we've only been in this about 5 months, 5.5 months, March, April, May, June, July, 5.5 months, I guess. And so when you think about what's it going to be like in 4 months, very hard to predict that. So.
Question, Mayor, about what kind of numbers would the city need to see to begin considering lifting some of the restrictions, particularly around masks, the bars, restaurants, opening playgrounds, things like that?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think we're going to see a lift in the mask requirement until there's a vaccine and it's widely available. Now, maybe I'll be proven wrong on that if the numbers just go low and stay low. But, that's not what we've seen happen over the last 5.5 months. So I think masks are with us for a good while. Social distancing, I think, is with us for a good while. And what was the other thing?
Playgrounds.
Some playgrounds. I know you all want to take your kids to the playgrounds. We don't recommend it, but take them to the park by all means. And, play in the park, but just not on the playground equipment.
Question from Jenny, is the city of St. Louis going to shut down like the Metro East is apparently going to start implementing additional restrictions starting next week?
So I know the Metro East, they did this week, is it this week, implement some new restrictions. Oh, and I think what they're doing is placing some further restrictions on mask wearing when you're at restaurants. I did hear that. And that's only common sense. So, you're supposed to wear a mask when you're indoors. When you're seated, this is in the city of St. Louis, when you're seated at a table with your party, eating dinner, lunch, dinner, or taking a drink of a beverage, you don't have to have your mask on. But when the waitress or waiter, server, comes up to your table to take your order, to deliver your food, to ask you if you need anything else, you really should put your mask back on again. And I believe what I read was that Illinois was going to mandate that. We haven't talked about doing that. Some of this is some common sense. So when you're around other people, give them the courtesy of wearing your mask.
A question from Paul, Mayor. When might seniors, adults, and kids be able to take advantage of city-owned swimming pools that have so far been closed due to COVID-19?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, first of all, we're almost out of summer here, so any outdoor pools are not going to open this year. Some indoor pools may open at some point in time if we have lifeguards for them, but not right now. Private pools are open, apartment complex pools, condo complex pools. Those are all fine to be open. But on the public pools, and we don't have a whole lot of public pools in the city of St. Louis, they are not open.
So, COVID-related question, Mayor, about the status of the eviction moratorium in the city of St. Louis, which is, as of right now, set to expire in just a couple of days.
I think next week, right?
The 1st of September, Tuesday, I think.
Yeah. So we have been in conversations with the judges over at the court system, and we are expecting, I should say we're hoping and we believe that there will be an extension of the moratorium for those people that can't pay their rent because they were laid off or their hours were reduced due to COVID. Now, there were certainly there were people that weren't paying their rent before COVID. There are people that are involved in eviction proceedings because of behavioral issues or criminal issues. Those are not stayed right now, and they won't be stayed. But for folks that are just are having difficulty paying their rent, we may get another month of an eviction extension, moratorium extension. And we probably know something about that early next week.
Questions on other topics, Mayor? We do have a question about some of the traffic changes downtown and how much longer, will they still be in effect for this weekend, and how many more weekends or how much longer do we anticipate that being in place?
So the traffic changes, as you know, we closed Washington Avenue from 12th to 14th. We closed it in one direction from 12th to 10th. We also narrowed down some of the bigger streets, Broadway and 4th Street specifically, and we closed Eads Bridge. Those changes will remain in place through this weekend. Next week, we're evaluating maybe tweaking that a bit and not having quite so many closures on weekdays and those sorts of things. But particularly with regards to Eads Bridge, we are expecting that starting next week, Eads Bridge would be open. I'm talking about weekdays now for people driving back and forth to work, that it would be open on weekdays. Then the following weekends, the next weekend would be Labor Day weekend. That following weekends, it would be closed at night and open during the day for people to get back and forth. And some of that will get worked out and be tweaked, but that's what we're expecting. And we may make some modifications on Washington Avenue. We do have, kind of depends on how this weekend goes, quite frankly. We will have a big police presence again, still, I should say, in downtown this weekend. And, the driving fast, dangerously, doing wheelies, doing donuts, that's just not acceptable. So those street closures are helping with that, and we will have a large police presence. We'll have tow trucks here, and a big manpower presence this weekend again. And so we're going to see how it goes.
So along those lines, Mayor, we did get a question about whether the city could encourage vendors and businesses on Wash Ave to bring tables, chairs to the middle of the street for great outdoor dining.
So that would certainly be acceptable for that stretch of Wash Ave that is closed. I will say someone sent me some pictures yesterday that was taken at lunchtime, 12:30 or something like that. And there are tables and chairs in the streets on Washington Avenue, but there wasn't anybody there at lunchtime yesterday. So this is a matter of balancing. We want those businesses to be able to stay open as much as possible. And some neighborhoods have seen great success for closing a couple block stretch of a street, on a Friday and Saturday night from 5 to 10 or something like that. They've seen great success for their restaurants because then tables and chairs can be placed out in the street. It's lovely to sit out and dine. So some of that is possible. This needs to get worked out really between the city, the business owners, property owners, and residents. And there's got to be a balance there. Everybody wants good street life. So we're trying to work all that out.
So we do have quite a few questions, Mayor, about the upcoming election in November and voting and all those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the status about, we did get a few questions about the status of potentially being able to vote at Busch Stadium, and will we be able to do it on the field?
Oh, gosh. I doubt that. It's November, remember? But I don't know. So as you've seen across the country, there are several sports teams that have stepped up to say, hey, if you need our location to do voting, we're happy to do it. On Tuesday, I think it was, I spoke with the Cardinals about that, the ownership of the Cardinals, and they are open to the idea. In fact, they brought it up, volunteered to say, if you need to vote at Busch Stadium, we work with you to do that. The election board, which is a county function, is in conversations with them right now. Last Wednesday, 2 days ago, I told you that we, at the Board of E&A, we had appropriated $60,000 in order to set up 3 satellite voting locations. And what was in our mind was one north, one central in dense residential neighborhoods, and one south. The money would be used because, you know, you've got to staff places for however many hours you're open. And by the way, it would just be, it would not be paper ballots, because you'd never be able to have enough paper ballots, every paper ballot combination at every polling place. So it would be electronic voting. And we haven't decided on any locations yet, although the election board is working hard on that. And I know they're in conversations with the Cardinals and Busch Stadium to do that.
How does it get determined? This was a question we got about how does it get determined where the polls are actually located?
Well, that's a pretty complex puzzle, because what you have are, you have wards, within wards you have precincts, and you have junior college, community college district, you have first congressional district, you have state senate districts, you have state rep districts. So all of those lines on the map, there's a different ballot in every one of those combinations. And sometimes it's even smaller than that, because you might have a special business district or something that's on the ballot as well. So there are 99 polling places. There were in August, probably be right around that number in November, polling places. And they are places that need to be accessible, so physically accessible, places within neighborhoods and dense populations, if at all possible, making it as easy as possible for people to get there, walk there. They have to have the space in the facility, has to be safe. So there's all those considerations that go into where is a polling place located. Most people in the city of St. Louis have a polling place that's pretty convenient to their house.
Well, that's all the questions we have, Mayor. It's almost 2:30.
That's all the questions we have for today. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate the chance to visit with you and to take your questions. Have a great weekend. Have fun. Thanks.